Episode 3 of The Last of Us is going to be the best and most shocking episode yet, according to even the show creators themselves. In fact, some critics are saying it's going to be the best TV episode of the entire year. So what's going to happen next? Let's dive deeper into why it's going to be the most memorable episode of the series by breaking down 5 things we can expect from Episode 3. Starting with, number 1, the action is going to pick up. Episode 2 starts off a little slow, building context as Ellie, Tess, and Joel move through the abandoned, overgrown city of Boston. We get to know Ellie a bit more, gain a deeper understanding of the world that has been created by the new show, and learn more about how the fungus works from the characters. For example, Joel mentions that the fungus spreading through spores in the air is a myth, which is a change from how the fungus spreads in the video game. Tess also talks about how the infected are connected through the cordyceps fungus, mentioning that the fungus spreads like a system of wires underground that can communicate with the infected. Ultimately though, the majority of the episode feels like we are just getting our feet wet for what's to come, though not as wet as our group of smugglers. Still, the episode did not feature an incredible amount of action until the end. We waited for over half of the episode before we even encounter our first infected, as things took a while to develop. But for Episode 3, it doesn't seem like this will be the case. Based on the teaser for the next episode, we expect things to go off the rails quickly. We hear talk of raiders who will come at night.
There'll be raiders. They'll come at night,
Quiet and armed, and we see clips of the characters building barricades against the infected. In the teaser, we see explosions, flames, gunfire, speeding vans, bodies, distraught characters, and more. Altogether, Episode 2 looks like it is going to go all out crazy. We don't know what is going to go wrong, but we expect that plenty will. Even better, the trailer shows that we will see some classic Nick Offerman humor too. With all that we see in the teaser, our next expectation makes sense. Number 2, a longer episode. Episode 3 is slated to be the longest one of the series so far, so that alone builds up a ton of crazy ideas in our heads of what's to come. Episode 2 featured plenty of tension, but this tension develops slowly for a final crazy ending when everything gets turned on its head, as we watch Tess become infected and sacrifice herself to save Joel and Ellie. However, Episode 3 is set for a runtime of 80 minutes, meaning there will be plenty of time for crazy new events to unfold in the episode. With an almost hour-and-a-half long episode and much of the context building out of the way, now that the first 2 episodes have helped develop the backstory for us, we can expect Episode 3 to be the launching pad for the in-depth action to really get started. Let's turn to our next expectation. Number 3, introduction to Bill. At the end of Episode 2, Tess tells Joel to take Ellie to Bill and Frank's. If you played the original video game, you remember Bill as one of the most interesting characters. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter even before the season started, creators Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann confirmed that we will be reintroduced to Bill in Episode 3. In the game, Bill is an expert survivalist with scavenging and mechanical skills. He even builds traps and obstacles around his property to prevent the infected from making their way in. Bill's character will be played by the talented Nick Offerman from shows and movies like Parks and Recreation and Fargo. Bill's presence is supposed to have a big impact on the overall storyline for the new show, so we are dying to see how he fits into the role. In the video game, we learn about Bill's partner Frank, but we don't receive too much detail on how their partnership came to be. For some time, there has been speculation that we will get to learn more about Bill's partner Frank in the show, and that their story will be a key component of Episode 3. In the teaser for the next episode, this is pretty much confirmed, as we see Frank and Bill meet on his property, and see him involved in the action along the way. We are given a few subtle hints that they are romantic partners in the video game, so this might reach the surface more in the show if the creators expand further into their story. However, a deep dive into his character's story is not a direct adaptation from the video game, which means that we likely can't expect things to match the game exactly. Taking us to the next expectation for Episode 3. Number 4, radical changes are ahead. One of the biggest expectations we have for the 3rd episode is that things are going to start twisting even further. And that's not just a guess. We have heard this straight from the creators themselves. From what we have seen so far, the creators have done a pretty good job at sticking to the roots of the original video game, to the point that even fans have been impressed at how the show has stuck to the game's story. However, that might change in Episode 3. In the Hollywood Reporter interview, Mazin and Druckmann said that the 3rd episode would include radical changes to the game's story that will shock and perhaps challenge fans. This answer doesn't exactly satisfy our curiosity though. This mysterious change is set to center around Bill's storyline, so if the episode does dive into his story, then we can assume that things will be pretty different from the video game. We can't help but wonder whether these changes will be good ones or if they will stray far enough away from the game to cause some outrage for fans. We think they will center around his relationship with Frank. Whatever the changes are, we are dying for the next episode release so we can find out. Let us know in the comments what changes you think might be coming. Finally, for our biggest expectation for episode 3 of The Last of Us. Number 5, our expectations should be high. Unfortunately, us fans of the show have to wait another week before we get to see the episode for ourselves. But those who had special access to see it have big things to say about it, including voice actor from the video game, Troy Baker. On the Play Watch Listen podcast, Baker said, "I have seen up to episode 5 and I can tell you right now, you get to episode 3, you're done. What it sets up in the first 2 episodes, it introduces you to the world if you have no idea what it is. It takes all of your expectations and just gets rid of them. Well, what makes for better television than a show that keeps audiences on their toes?" These comments make us question how far the creators are willing to deviate from the video games, and make it even more difficult to predict what will happen. We don't think that everyone is going to make it out at the end of episode 3. So, will we see a shocking death? Will Bill become infected? Will Ellie's immunity bring us a cure? There are so many questions we have about what twists could come. Whatever they are, we are here ready to dive in when the episode releases. Episode 3 is set to release on Sunday, January 29th on HBO Max, so don't miss it. There you have it, the 5 biggest expectations for episode 3. What do you think will happen in the new episode? What are your thoughts on the series so far? Let us know down in the comments below. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe for more updates and breakdowns surrounding The Last of Us and the rest of your favorite shows and movies. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in our next breakdown.